the left, to the right. Who? How are you?
Woo! I needed some extra dancing today. I am well.
Yes.
How are you, my friend?
Good. I'm good. Rested.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I am glad to
Yes.
hear that. Yeah,
Yes.
I am streaming in today from Boulder, Colorado. Not my usual
Mhm.
digs. This
Right.
is the ancestral land of the Ute, I think that's how you say it, and many other Native American tribes, like the Apache, the Comanche. Like I was looking it up, and there was like six. It was a
Yeah.
lot, and this is pretty it's incredible country, but it is dry. I'm from the
Mm.
East Coast. Like
Yeah.
I'm used to glowing from head to toe, and I
Hello.
forgot my Shalo.
No.
Ah! So I have I know I'm not even showing you my hands today. I
It's not a good feeling. No, I know. I
right?
know. And again, it could sound like we're hyping it up. So I try not to like, but I get it. You don't want to run out. You don't even every time you wash your hands, they get dry. It's just a part of living. We get dry. That's what happens. So
Right?
especially if you're out there in the dry environment.
Well, I said something to my sister the other day about living in a desert. She's like, "This is not the desert." And I'm like, "Well, it feels like it. Like you step off the plane in Denver and all the moisture goes out of
Mhm.
your body."
Mm,
But I'm loving it. I mean, I have a view of the Flatirons, which are these gorgeous mountains, and I
mm,
biked all around Boulder today. Boulder is one of the most bikeable and walkable cities in the United States. And
mm.
my sister was like, "Yeah, you can bike all over town." And well, I got lost today, so I'm pretty sure I did that.
Yeah.
We biked for a solid 2 hours, which I love because I'm a
Mm,
cyclist at heart, but it's
mm.
been a minute. So,
Yeah.
so I'm feeling healthy and well, and I'm a little tired.
I
So,
hear
how
you.
is your week going?
Yeah. Oh, interesting. And you know that. So let me share this story, guys, because I think I'm going to share after the podcast too, because this week got a positive COVID test. And that
Oh,
was interesting. Right after
right,
however many years, I have not gotten a positive COVID test. But
right.
we know I'm covered, glowing from head to toe. We talk about the shea butter sealing the skin. And I said, I feel fine. I'm eating the apple onto this space where I decided to stay for the night since I needed to quarantine myself, right? And I'm laughing because I eat an apple like every day. The doctor
Hmm.
has stayed away. I feel fine. And so thankfully I took two tests and came back negative. But that was interesting being out at an event for Shalo Glow. So I'm out here as a
Hmm.
wellness company and you get a positive COVID test. So
So it
uh,
could have been a false positive, or it could
I
have been
know
that you had
definitely
it with no
with
symptoms.
non-symptomatic, right?
Okay,
So I
good.
feel like it was didn't have it. Again, I felt fine. We, of course, like everybody else, have been watching ourselves and making sure, oh, what is that? What is that? And trying not to
Hmm.
just think that everything is, again, something to be worried about because our bodies go
Right,
through cycles and,
right.
maybe it's what you ate or you're sleeping or whatever it is and things that we look at. But just grateful for the confident vote of health, and no, we're talking about intellectual wellness today. We're about to get into the definition. And when I think about learning what it means to really be well, and that's what I talk about in the book that's coming out in less than 7 days, right? I
Wait,
wasn't
pause,
taught.
pause, dance break. If you haven't heard,
Yes, right? We have
on
a
the
book.
27th, we have a book that is
27.
being released. Woohoo!
Yes, yes, us and after us 16 other authors, so 18
Right?
in total, really exciting. But again, not knowing how to take care of myself is definitely full circle from having to move out of the apartment when COVID
Hmm.
happened, not being financially set up, to now being able to replace a laptop. I told you guys the podcast and the laptop flew off the car the way I said it on the podcast last week, right? And then this week, what if I wasn't salaried? What if I didn't
Right?
have the money saved to take care of stuff? Like my money would have been moved, the vacation hours were moved. Like it affects so many different dimensions.
Right?
So it just made me grateful for what we talk about all the time.
Well, and congrats, my friend.
Yes. Thank you
Congrats
so much.
for being in a place of wellness where you could
Yeah.
respond
Mhm.
appropriately and
Right.
and take care of yourself, because I know you're so
Yeah.
busy taking care of so many other people. It's nice that you were able to take care of yourself, and I'm glad that you
Yeah.
didn't have huge symptoms or it wasn't
Right.
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I bought
So,
myself some flowers. You guys know I like
oh,
flowers.
let's see. Oh, those are beautiful. Are
Yes.
they pink roses?
They're like pink and purple. I've
Mm,
been getting the multicolor. So we're celebrating our book release right now. Our book
right.
release and my
Beautiful.
mom's birthday coming up.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, shouldn't we
Oh,
do our
so
official introduction and kick this
oh, we
off? Or
haven't
did
even
you have
done the
something? I
intro?
know.
No, I was gonna go to the definition. Let's introduce ourselves. Please.
Well,
Yes.
we're on a travel day today.
Yeah, this is what we do, right? We're just
All right, let's
talking.
do it.
Let's do it. Okay, ladies, thank you for being here. My name is Shannon Mitchell. I'm a Black millennial business owner, the founder of Shalo Glow LLC, a handmade personal products company. I am your champion for natural self care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Mm. Hey, y'all, I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and a dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself in community care.
Yes, together we are Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the eight dimensions of wellness.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. How do we do this in the midst of this chaos? How do we do
Yeah.
like
You know? Really. Yep. That about
right?
sums it up right there. Yes. Oh, and let's go ahead and get into the definition for this week. Again, episode 85. We're talking about intellectual wellness. And intellectual wellness includes having access to different sources of information and developing critical thinking and timely decision-making skills. Continual learning through intentional intellectual growth, situations, and artistic creativity can help maintain one's intellectual capacity.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You know, I've been hanging out with my nibblings this week, the 3-year-old.
Mhm. Yes.
And that is such a fun age and stage when you talk about intellectual wellness because like you see their brains like developing as you watch them, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Like how they put things together and we read stories. And this morning we woke up and putting we were doing a sticker book about track like in
Mm.
matching the shapes and
I love stickers. Yeah.
right, me too.
Yeah.
Well, and I think about intellectual wellness and I think about playing, right? That how
Mhm.
much when we play, we learn things, which,
Yeah.
which y'all know I'm a huge proponent of interplay, and our guest today is an interplayer. That's how I
Yeah.
met her. I don't know if that's even in her bio, but we're gonna about to find out. And
Right.
just that how sometimes we can think about, oh, intellectual wellness, we have to be serious, right?
Right.
And I just was thinking about it this morning as I was playing with those guys and just like how much fun it is to learn. How much
Yeah.
fun it is to learn something new and grow, right?
Right. Right. And for me, that's been the biggest thing of all of this, right? We have the shea butter, we have the eight dimensions of wellness and all this stuff that we talk about. But what it's really all about is you will have to continue to learn stuff. And the stuff that you learn is stuff that you didn't know before, right? So, what is the best way to learn something new? Put an action behind it so you can see the result that you need and expect in your life based on the things that you've done, right? And then go to the next goal, go to the next incremental step. And I found that when it's a safe space, right? That's what we're going to talk about today. When it's a fun space and it's not heavy with stress or unrealistic expectations, it makes it more effective. It makes it more realistic to reach those things and to continue in a healthy way that flows naturally instead of sometimes in an unhealthy environment to learn like we've seen in different places, how
Mhm.
can we affect it positively? So I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. Let's go ahead
Yeah.
and get her up here if you're ready. Do you want to read the
Of
definition one more
course.
time? And then I'll read her
Yes.
bio?
Absolutely. So, intellectual wellness includes having access to different sources of information and developing critical thinking and timely decision making skills. Continual learning intentional intellectual growth, situations, and artistic creativity can help maintain one's intellectual capacity.
Mm, I love that
Hmm.
definition.
Me
All
too.
right, y'all. Let me introduce my friend and my colleague. I'm so excited to have her with us today. Kate Arms has been helping smart and sensitive people thrive since 1984 when she realized she could turn the lonely outlier kids in her middle school into a group of friends. I love that. What? She has learned through experience that every person has the power to improve the culture of a group with or without formal authority. She specializes in thriving in complexity and helping people manage conflict in healthy ways. As a professional coach, she brings a trauma informed approach to helping adults who have struggled with anxiety, depression, and trauma. I almost said drama, but trauma, and is committed to gender aware and gender inclusive coaching. Her career has taken her through law, technology, publishing, nonprofits, and the arts. She has seen firsthand that the same set of skills improves culture in every industry. Whether she was an agile coach, customer service rep, individual creative contributor, project manager, lawyer, director, board member, or company founder, she has been honing her skills and improving cultures. As a leader, she has a reputation for getting exceptional performance out of her direct reports, delivering quality results with limited resources, and creating engaged teams that have fun through the process of working hard and delivering excellence. Man, she is such a badass. That's not in her bio, y'all, but she just really is. Since 2013, she has been helping others transform the cultures of their workplaces, communities, and families through coaching and training. She is sought after as a speaker on topics at the intersection of individual well being, collective accomplishment, and inclusion. Her superpowers, we love superpowers. Her superpower is facilitating open, challenging, and respectful conversations on controversial topics on Facebook. She has a JD, including negotiation and mediation training from Harvard Law School. Her coach training includes coaching certification from the Coactive Training Institute, organizational and relationship systems coaching training from CRR Global, and certification in creativity coaching from the Creativity Coaching Association. She is a certified IC Agile expert in enterprise coaching, a certified Scrum Master, and certified interplay leader, and graduate of CTI's Coactive Leadership Program. Woo! I told y'all she's incredible. Welcome to the stage, Kate
Thank
Arms.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, I'm so
We're
excited to
so
be
glad
here.
you're here.
I want to hear what this woman you just introduced has to say.
Right? Right?
Right? She's
Because she's
so
freaking
awesome.
incredible.
Yes.
Well, first, before we get into intellectual wellness, how are you today?
I'm good. I have had a long, full day already after a long, full half week to get here. But this morning, I had two teams that I've been working with to transform the way of working, and we've been doing all of the training. And then this morning, we did the here's the we're going to go and do it now. And I warned them that it was going to be uncomfortable and it was going to go badly and that they were going to have all kinds of mistakes and that it was just, and these are professionals who have been doing this stuff for a long time. So permission to fail and to, as part of the learning process was really, really important.
Mhm.
And they rocked it and I rocked it. And we've now made a pivot and we're going to go from being awful, but smart pretty fast. We're going to get to being pretty good.
I love that. I love in your bio where it says no matter where you are or what position you're in, you can make a cultural change.
Mhm.
And I know our title is about safety, psychological safety, but I know that that ties into it. So
Yeah, it's really interesting because if you're at the top of a hierarchy, if you've got formal leadership, you have more cultural impact because people look to you for guidance. And so if you're creating fear around you, it's harder for the people around you to bring safety and courage into the space. And if you're creating an inviting, welcoming, courageous space and courageous conversation, it's much easier for people who are otherwise afraid or uncomfortable to step into it. And even if there's not courage from the top and there's not trust from the top, if you as an individual, or if I as an individual have done my own work so that I take care of my own emotional activation and my own anxieties, and I show up trusting, curious, playful, if I show up in that open learning space and I am stronger in that than I am in absorbing what's around me, I leak and it spreads.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is one of the ways to create cultural change is to show up grounded and with joy and curiosity and playfulness and shine in your light,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. And it's challenging. Like to pretend that that's hard, that's easy is like it sounds so simple when we say it like that. And it is simple in that if you show up with your light shining, people reflect that, pick that, and their own lights start to shine. And for people who are used to working in spaces where that's not permitted, it's very, very uncomfortable. I mean, it really is change. And so part of creating the cultural change is actually to give them permission to be uncomfortable and to not dim your light because they're uncomfortable, to actually be like, my light can shine and you can be uncomfortable. And that's beautiful. That's human.
I love that so much. I was, you heard me say earlier, Kate, and y'all know I'm out here taking care of the nibblings. So I've been watching more cartoons than I've watched in a really long
Oh,
time, right? So have y'all seen this short on Pixar called Purl?
not yet.
All right, I'm going to put it in the show notes, but I highly recommend it. But it's exactly what you're talking about, right? So it is about this female. She's a pink little ball of yarn, Pearl. Get it? Purl.
I love it.
And she's coming to this new job that she's really excited about, and she's shining. But it's a culture that is very male dominated. Everybody looks the same. Everybody acts the same. It's a very bro culture. So she tries to change. It's not safe for her. So she tries to fit in and change herself. And she's doing okay until another bright, sparkly, shiny ball of yarn gets off and she has to make the choice. Am I going to stay with this culture or am I going to create culture change? And she creates culture change. So I know it was a cartoon, but it was so awesome. Like, I was like, what? What is happening here?
Yeah. And I mean, what I love about that is that we're talking about intellectual wellness here. We're talking about learning and we're talking about play as a form of engagement for learning. Like those children don't know what they're learning, and we don't know quite what they're taking away from watching that story, but they've got a myth, a story, an analogy that they can use to talk about this. And there's an analogy that the adults who work with them can use to talk about this. And because Pixar is amazing and makes films that are enjoyable for adults, we can use it. Like the number of times that I've been giving a talk since Inside Out came out, when I've been talking about emotional intelligence and the need to actually embrace all of who we are in order to be comfortable with who we are. Because if we walk into a space and we're sort of putting sadness in the back and we're not bringing all of us, we're broken. And so I use Inside Out in the talks I give with adults. It's now sort of been out for long enough that I sort of go, did you see it? Do I need to tell you the plot? But yeah, we have these stories that teach us how to be courageous. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's important to sometimes, even as adults, to see it as a little kid's movie. Oh, this isn't supposed to be for me. So you can kind of look like this is for a friend and you're
Right.
learning a little bit, right? You learn it on accident, but I also think that kind of like Peter Pan, I want to stay, like we talk about, playful. You don't want to get too on the serious side where you can't laugh at yourself um, or you lose touch with joy to a certain extent. That's how I think about things like animation and cartoons because the stories are relevant, and even as a woman, the way a story might hit before you have children and after you have children is different because your perspective is different.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of sharing stories, because just like art or creativity, it can mean different things to different people at different times.
Yeah. I love your piece about like sometimes we need to wink at it and go, this is for kids, but I'm here.
Yeah.
Because if we are working in environments where we don't feel like it's okay to be playful fully and to really embody that, finding the places where that group of people is willing to wink and is willing to go, okay, we're going to play, even if it's just a little tiny thing. And we go, well, we're not supposed to do this. And
Yeah.
like that's your entryway. That's your place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
I
love
love
that you
that.
talk about the creating communities that support each other in that way, right? I know that no matter where I'm working, I have the group of people who I know are going to train me the right way, tell me the blueprint of the social landscape of the job, and tell me what's going on, and hold space. Even if it's something we've been doing at the restaurant is a water break we used to do, right? Making sure that, hey, we're giving water and food and drinks to all these people. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And in the work environment, sometimes that can be the kind of the outsiders. Everybody's used to just go, go, go. Well, I'm going to pause so
Yeah.
that I can keep going.
Yeah. And sometimes those communities are sort of formal and they might be your team. Like if you have a really great team at work, your
Yeah,
team can be that. And you can actually have that
absolutely.
in your meetings and you can have that. And if you don't have a really great team, then like maybe there's an employee research group, or maybe there's a bunch of people you're in a mastermind group with, or maybe there's
Mhm.
some friends who are in your industry that you get together with and talk about it. Or maybe there's some people that you know at the company, or that are like, okay, you're my people, and we
Yeah,
can't actually take this out to the whole, but at least we can have it here. And so there's all that different sort of scope for scale. And if there are 6 of you having a conversation and one of you has the courage to say something in a bigger meeting, that 6 is actually all responsible, right? Because the 5 who are helping the one have the courage, they're part of what happened in the bigger meeting.
absolutely.
Oh, that's a good thing. I love that, Kate, because there's so many. We don't do it by ourselves. I
Mm-mm.
mean, we talk about this show on the show all the time, that we don't do this by ourselves, and to acknowledge that, like the shoulders on whom we stand, and I love that. I think that's powerful. That's
Yeah.
something that was coming up. Oh, go Shannon, and then I have something that was coming up.
No, thank you. And even like you said, Kate, if we're talking and then one person says it in a meeting, what I've been thinking a lot about is holding the door open. Who makes it possible to get to that next step and the work that they did. So even if it was, to Christine's point, if this person did change who they were a little bit to fit, it still made it possible for the next person to be a little bit more themselves and a little bit more themselves. And I think that that's where we're getting as women in different aspects of how you could think about it like that.
Yeah, what was bubbling up for me is I was thinking, and I'd love your perspective on this, Kate, but I was thinking about women who might be listening and thinking, "Oh, I don't feel safe enough to joke and
Mm.
do that." And I was thinking, first of all, honor where you are
Yeah.
and know that anything that has gotten you to this point has been probably a survival mechanism, right? And then how do we start making those shifts if we're not used to that? Like if we've been guarded and really just in a protective space. How do we start? How do you shift? How do you start to shift?
Yeah. And I think that we start really, really small. And when I say really, really small, I actually mean with self-awareness.
Mhm.
Like that's where I always start with this. So you don't feel safe. You feel like I have to fit in this mold and this is the one that I do. And that if I bridge that too much, I'm going to put in the work context, I'm going to put my livelihood at risk. Right. And I've got my kids to feed and I got, right. So, right. So I don't feel safe. Like
Right.
I can't take that risk. So the first thing you do is you actually, from time to time, as much as you can stand it, when you're in that meeting, when you're in that setting, you actually sort of just check in with your inner felt sense of what your body is feeling and just notice what your body is feeling. So like I'm imagining it and immediately I started imagining it. My shoulders got up and my shoulders got tight and my elbows got squeezed into my chest and my jaw went a little bit tight and I felt it. And if you have that felt sense, it actually honors yourself more fully in that moment because it honors that there's the mask you're putting on for the performance you think you have to do, and there's the pain that you're experiencing putting on that performance. And if you do that, that actually starts to shift, like that actually starts to leak. And that actually might actually bring a little bit more awareness to the whole group, even if they don't know what's happening. And we start small because there are lots of places where lots of us have been trained into believing that it's not safe, and we have to test those waters. And if we've got something important like a job where sustenance and
Right.
is on the line, It's totally okay to say, this is as brave as I am today. And this is as brave as I am this week. And this is as brave as I am this year. And I mean, there's a reason that women who get their kids off to college, get their kids launched in school, get the kids out of high school, like whatever it is that's the launching, whether it's, you know, anything so that the kid is now young adults in semi self-supporting, so that they're not so much of a, they need me to have this much money coming in, or they need me to have this much space for them at home. So many women, the kids launch and then they come out of their shells, and it's because it's safe. It's because this need to protect the children, it has lessened. Like, we still care and we still want to protect them, and we still hurt when they hurt and all of that. But we know that if something bad happens to us, it's not immediately going to turn into something bad happening for them.
That is a really good point, Kate. Like, because that's a survival instinct,
Yep.
right? And it's an instinct that people who have children have, that, you know, they may stay in jobs longer or be unhappy because of what it does for the entire family.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a really great point.
Right.
And I mean, go ahead,
Go ahead.
Kate.
No, go ahead, Shannon.
And I was going to say that I think that's why we have the whole situation that we have with the resignations and the silent quitting, or whatever term is the newest today, you know, because we see the balance of it. But of course, the question is still, where is the sustenance coming from? And that's why I love having these conversations with women like you, Kate, that are doing things and having projects and helping people get connected in ways that they're actually supported, because the money still has to come in. But I also
Yeah.
have the right to say, this is a boundary that I have, though. If it's genuinely not safe for me, then I need to have options so that I can be safe and take care of my children.
Yeah. And an enormous amount of the work that I do in organizations is actually teaching people the skills to say, no, I can't put that on my plate right now, in a way that lands as a reasonable statement, rather than as a statement of, like, I'm not doing this job.
I love that you're
Absolutely.
bringing that up because, you know, in Stillpoint, our fifth skill of self care is the boundaries, saying yes and saying no. And just like you were talking about earlier, it is very simple, but not easy to do.
Right.
So I love what I'm hearing you say is that you literally go in and you teach people how to say this, how to do this, how to stand up for themselves and become safer.
Yeah. I mean, the conversation that I had with this team, the way of working is actually, that we're shifting to, is actually designed so that every 2 weeks, the whole team commits to what they're going to do for the next 2 weeks, based on assessing their own capacity, their own, what they can take. And then there are a couple of people whose job is now, and it's not their job, it wasn't their job before, so this terrifies them. Their job is now to turn around to the people who are coming in from sales and from business, and the people who are concerned about the revenue generation, and who are saying, we need this now, we promised this to a customer, and why haven't we delivered it, and all of that pressure. And they have to turn around and say to them, we'll look at whether we can take that on in 2 weeks.
I love that. And it's so important to, and even we talk about the definition, right, Christine? Like, what part of the definition stood out to you? For me, this week is capacity. That is so important, especially after COVID, when we're talking about the psychological safety in the workplace or in different environments where we have responsibilities, right? If we put the same amount, let's say, of work on the schedule as we had before COVID, if it feels different, the question might be because of the capacity, you know, maybe before we had somebody else who could help the children, but now maybe they don't feel comfortable with the children being over there, with the children being in school, or whatever that means. If the details have shifted, I might not realistically be able to do that for you. And it's interesting to have to be in a position to say that for work. But that's where the black and the white comes from. And this list of things that I'm supposed to get done, might not always fit into real life. So how do we reach our goals as a business and as a team? I love that that 2 week marker, even for when to put it on the schedule as far as timing stuff out correctly.
Yeah, when I was first running my own business and I was not managing it well at all, my very first business coach said to me, okay, I want you doing these 2 week sprints. And sprints come from agile and technology, but he was like, I want you doing these 2 week sprints. I want you to decide every 2 weeks, I'm going to work on this. And I want you to have 3 things you're working on over that 2 weeks. And that was it. And I was like, but I've got to do my website, and I've got to like make kind calls, and I've got to do all these emails, and I've got to do this, and I want to start a podcast and write a book. And he'd be like, okay, what 3 things are you going to do in the next 2 weeks? And then I'd show him, and he'd say, and when are you going to eat lunch? And I'd be like, oh, I didn't put lunch on the calendar. Oops.
Literally.
Right.
Literally,
Like,
yes. And cooking lunch or the
Guilty.
travel time to get to lunch. Yes.
Yep.
It has to be included.
I think that's so common, especially for a lot of people, but especially women who tend to be the caregivers, whether it's for partners or children or the community or, whoever,
Mhm.
that we talk about this on the show a lot, Kate, is like scheduling that time. Like, because if you don't put lunch in your calendar, somebody's going to take that time because it's going to show up available on your calendar and somebody's going to go, let me have that, right?
yeah, it's interesting because I just want to sort of poke a little bit at the, especially for women part,
Sure.
because I think it's really easy to see how women do that in the, I'm caretaking for everybody, family context. Like, I will take my lunch break to go and take the kids to the doctor instead of having lunch, right? Like those kinds of things. It's really easy to see how the gendered assumptions for women push in that direction. I think it's harder to see the way that men are subject to the same pressure. And so I work in a male dominated industry in that organization, and the back-to-back meeting culture, I start my meeting at my day at 7:30 in the morning, and I have 3 meetings I'm supposed to be at 8:15 and 2 I'm supposed to be at 9:30, and it's there, and it's a different structure that creates exactly the same pressure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think that, yeah, we have to acknowledge all those struggles, right? We have to acknowledge all of that and realize that yeah, you just said it perfectly. So I'm going to be quiet now.
Yeah, I have a bit of a thing about gender and the way that we talk about gender and these things. And you mentioned in my bio, I put gender aware, because I think that it's important for us to know that the manifestation of these things can very often look very gendered because of the gender norms and the assumptions and sort of some of the structural assumptions about what mothers do compared to what fathers do, and what is tough and weak in a man and versus what is tough and weak in a woman are different. And that fundamental need to have access to our playful curiosity so that we can learn is the same, and the need for community is the same, and the need for diversity of thought so that other people sort of challenge us so that we learn is the same. And the pressures to look like we know what we're doing are that we've all got them. And one of the things that I find very, very exciting right now is there are a lot of things like this podcast that are really focused towards women, and they're starting to be a much more public kind of acceptance that men need to do this work too. And it really, really excites me, because as women, if we're in relationship with men, which most of us, whether that's a romantic relationship or a friendship or a collegial relationship where we have men in our lives, the more they get to do this work, the more we don't have to protect ourselves from them not having done the work.
Oh my gosh, can you say that again? Can you say that one more time? Like, that was everything right there,
Um,
Kate.
yeah. So the more that men do this work, the less we have to protect ourselves from them not having done this work.
Whew. Boy,
That's
that
it.
landed when you said it
Thank
right
you for
there. We're
joining us for
done.
episode 85. Okay.
I said we're done. I got one soundbite.
Mic
Um,
drop.
Yes.
no,
It's so true though. Like, I mean, I
yeah,
think it's true, men, women, all people, right?
Right.
However you identify. If we do our own work, what I heard you say that, Kate, is if we each do our own work, it's going to make the world a better place. I
Hmm.
mean,
yeah,
we know that to be true. And that's a
Yeah.
simple thing that's hard to do, right?
yep,
Mhm.
Like, if you there's so many, and I can't give attribution right now, you may know it, but if you want to save the world, go home and work on yourself. And it's a piece, like, we have to do both, right?
yeah,
As activists and people who want to make a difference in the world, we're holding both at the same time. But we can't forget that piece of that self-awareness, that working on ourselves, the starting with our body, like
Hmm.
the taking the deep breath when things are not going well,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
yeah.
checking
And
in and
talking
And
being
to
grounded.
yourself a certain way. Yeah.
yeah, and people are starting to have that conversation in public too.
Mhm.
Sharon Salzberg's most recent book, Real Change, is a really good one because she's looking at how does mindfulness meditation, she's a Buddhist teacher, how does that support social action? And she talks very, very explicitly about two things that I think are really valuable. One is that piece of we come in, we work with ourselves in order to nurture ourselves so that we're re-energized for the new work, and also to train ourselves in ways of doing the work. And she, in that book, is really interesting because mindfulness is in the subtitle of that book. And every single exercise that she suggests is not an awareness mindfulness exercise. It's a loving kindness exercise. So
Mm.
what that book actually says is the work that we do in training our beings to be more innately loving kind
Mhm.
nurtures us and changes the world.
Heck yeah. A year
Yeah.
ago, I did Ruth King's year-long program, Meditating with Race, and it was kind of similar, but it was done in a group setting. And I'll put a link to the notes and to that book too, Kate. Thank you. We love good resources. Um,
Yes.
but it was the same concept. Like, we start with ourselves, we're meditating every day. We had the focus of ending racism, and we did it in groups. But it was that practice. It really is a practice of
Yeah.
being with ourselves and what are our intentions, and what is ours to do in the world, and being more loving and kind. I love that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
getting back to the sort of intellectual wisdom sort of definition, there's a consciousness about that, about choosing
Mhm.
that and being deliberate about the decision making that this is how I'm going to spend some of my time.
Yeah. And I mean, especially like everything that you talk about, okay, with the psychological safety, right? I have to be safe with myself. We talk about inner ally and how you talk to yourself when it's just you and your body and your mind. Is it safe? Whatever is inside, like you said, is going to start spilling out. So whether or not you tell somebody or not is not always the only, where that's social wellness, and that has a part to play in it. But the way that you treat yourself will affect the way that we treat the people around us. And that's why we always talk about self-care and community care, both individually and then together. But it's also why we created Connected in Wisdom Press, and made sure to not just have it say women connected in wisdom, because the eight dimensions of wellness are very important to everybody. Everybody has skin, everybody needs healthy habits in order to stay healthy and to be whole and well and wise and all these things that we talk about. We love uplifting women's voices, because a lot of times they've been hushed, or we
Yep.
haven't gotten as many opportunities to exercise those skills and those vocal cords, and all the things that go with it. But the information is for everybody. So I love that you spotlighted the men. I love the men and the strength that it takes to do everything that they, need to do and are the situations they're put in. I remember I was listening to Brene's Brown Dare to Lead. And she was talking about how this husband walked up to her after one of her speaking engagements. And he was talking about how the women in his family would prefer that he die up on the horse than he get off of it. I think he said then he fall off of it, something along those lines. And basically what he was saying was, you would rather pretend that I was okay and think that I'm this person that I'm not, than me not be okay and maybe I be in the position where I need some help, So to really bring everybody to the table to be taken care of is one of the things I love to do with everything that we talk about here.
Yeah. Yeah. The piece in there that I want to sort of poke at just a little bit because I love it is the like learning and practicing, and like the need to lift up the voices of the people who haven't practiced, because it's scary to not be skilled at this. And these are skills, which is the thing that I think is really optimistic, like really hopeful, is that becoming confident in your body, finding your voice, finding a way to be in relationship with people where you have your voice and you honor their voice. Those are skills, and we can develop them. And if we haven't been trained in them, we're bad at them.
Right.
Right? Like we don't start. We're not born being able to do all this.
Well, and then you throw a global pandemic on top of it, and
my goodness,
forget about it. Like we all need to go back to the drawing board on some of these, right?
Right. No, really.
Yeah.
Well, Kate, that's why I love Interplay and how we met, because it is a modality that, to me, lets you play with these things in a safe environment, right? It lets you play with people that are different from you, and be silly and have your voice heard and have equal time. And it is one of the things that I use in my toolbox all the time with my coaching clients and organizations. Often I may not tell them we're doing Interplay because that gets a little scary itself. But I want to circle back around to what you said at the very beginning, that you were working with on this team about permission to fail. I want you to say a little more about that, because when we think about things that are scary, when we think about trying something new and new skills, will you speak to that just a little bit?
Yeah. So learning is really, really bad for our egos, because learning starts from the place where we have something to learn. And so it starts from the place of, I don't know. If it starts from, I don't know, and I think maybe I'm expected to have already learned, it's like, whew, where's that pressure? Like big time, sort of like, okay, now do I have to pretend that I know and then go and study off in the back room so that eventually I can catch up? And that brings tension to our bodies, to our minds. It brings a narrowness of focus that means we're not actually open to the learning that we need to do. And so finding the self-compassion for our imperfection and permission to be bad at something for ourselves is really important. And then in a group, it's really important. So, this is a podcast. When somebody decides they want to do a podcast and it's their first podcast, they don't know anything. They're like, I don't know how you record it. I think I need to record it, and I need to get it out somewhere. And I don't know how to do any of that. And in order to get from there to I'm live streaming this thing, you actually have to have done a whole lot of research, a whole lot of trying things out, a whole lot of just not being so good at it, and doing it in public. Because the moment you learn how to distribute a podcast, it's in public. And so,
yeah, for anybody that's interested, go back and listen to episode 1 and you will notice a difference.
I have 2 podcasts. They're both,
right?
One of them is in process now and one of them is on hiatus. But yeah, I do not go back and listen to episode 1 for a reason. And episode 1 of the Leadership Arts Review is one of the most listened to episodes, not just because it's episode 1, But because we went for the big one, we went for a Brene Brown book. So we didn't start small.
I love that. I love that so much. So you dared to fail.
Yeah.
You went for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I resonate with that. Like Shannon and I, like 85 episodes ago, we started this thing and we're just like, we're going to go for it. And we get asked that question all the time. Like, and we're like, we had the basic understanding when we started, but we've grown a little bit over this
Yeah.
last year, and things we didn't know we would learn, we've learned
Right.
about ourselves and each other and this
Mhm.
industry and all
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. I got a text from one of my kids earlier today, and it was that he had learned a thing, and he'd learned a technology for editing some images. And it was the first time he'd done image editing. It was the first time he'd learned the tech. And so he sent me the thing he did. And the text is full of all caps. I'm gonna change this. And it's like, okay. And I was like, so there's the courage, right? He shared with his mom something that he knows isn't what he wanted. And he knows that I'll celebrate his having learned that. And what I texted back to him was like, wow, that's awesome for a first go. And then he came back with the self-deprecating, but I'm going to need to fix this, and the other. And I was like, but he's been my kid for a long time. So he said, but this is okay for now. And I texted right back at him, good enough for now. It's such an awesome place to be.
Right.
Like good
I
enough
love
for
how
now.
these skills, the psychological safety skills, like transfer, work,
Yeah.
home. And Kate, you haven't mentioned, and I don't think it was in your bio, but before we get off, I want you to mention your book about parenting, because
Mm.
you take a different approach to parenting and you take a coaching approach. And I want people to know about that because it's such a valuable resource.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about why the 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 book came apart, and then I'll talk about the book. It's called L.I.F.T, L-I-F-T, and it's L.I.F.T, and then a colon, a coach approach to parenting, which is a really awful title, and you should never title with that kind of punctuation in it. All of the search engines are bad. It's a really awful title. That said, that's the title I gave it, and I haven't changed it yet. But it came about because I have two kids who are on the autism spectrum, who are intellectually really gifted. And then the autism theory that makes sense for my children is that it's a manifestation of behavioral response to really, really high sensitivity, and particularly threat response sensitivity and autonomy need sensitivity. And so all of the parenting techniques that were like, I am the parent and I decide what the rules are in this house, and then I teach you how to follow them, none of those worked. And I had to drop them very fast. What I needed was to find something else that worked. And I read all the books. I go to books when I feel out of control. And so I read all the books. And nothing that I read in the parenting books helped. At the same time, I was doing coach training and leadership training. And I started practicing the coaching skills with my kids. And I started teaching my kids and myself in the context so I took my leadership training and said, well, I'm not leading a team right now. I'm not leading a company. I was just a solopreneur. So I said, but I'm a parent, so I'm leading a family. So I applied all of that leadership training to my role as a leader in the family. And what I discovered was that all of that coach training and that particular form of leadership, the coactive leadership model, is really about leading in pairs. So it's not one leader with lots of followers. It's actually, how do we co-lead? And I found that was working with my children. And it was working with all my children. It wasn't just working with my autistic children. It was actually also really working with they're not neurotypical children. They're identified gifted, and one of them has a learning disability. Like, none of my kids are quite straightforward, but everybody's kid's quirky, right? Like anybody who tells me that there are like typical kids, I'm like, you haven't met enough kids to know that everybody's quirky. There are just some that are really, really quirky.
Yeah.
So I discovered that it was working with all of my kids. And then as I was coaching and I was working with parents, there were a lot of parents who had kids kind of like mine that I was meeting on the internet. And they were like, you're not pulling your hair out and your kids seem to be thriving. What are you doing? Because you've got some magic. And at first they started being like, who are you? And like, they didn't believe that they could do what I was doing. So I wrote the book because I'd started teaching that these are skills, that I didn't start out knowing how to parent this way. But I absorbed an enormous amount of information because I am an information junkie. And so this book was my way of trying to talk to more than one parent at a time about what had worked for my children.
Thank you. Like, thank you for taking your knowledge. I mean, this is perfect for when we talk about intellectual wellness, right? You took all this stuff that you learned, you synthesized it, and you created this book as a resource for other parents. Like, that's fabulous.
Yeah. And so it comes from, so basically there are a handful of principles and an approach, and then a bunch of tools, but the tools are not the important part because the tools are child specific. Exactly sort of how this plays out is child specific. But the things that I focused on was first, L.I.F.T is listen to learn, inspire, facilitate, teach. And so listen to learn is the first thing you do is you listen to learn who your child is. And then you try and figure out how to inspire them. So inspiration, this is the permission to fail, the playfulness, the how can their natural creativity and their natural learning be exposed. Then if they need your help to learn something, facilitate that learning. Put things in front of them that they can try. If they are interested in something, like look for a club that they can go to, look for a place that they might be able to play with other people who are interested in that, facilitate the learning, and then not teach until afterwards. And that was the most important thing, was like, most of the time as parents, we start as teachers. And so this was like, you only teach if you have to, and preferably if you are asked. And in order to do that, we have to trust that they're naturally creative, they're naturally resourceful, they're naturally wired for learning. They actually want to grow up to be functional adults.
Well, I think about how much of that applies to colleagues, right?
Yep.
Like
right?
Everything is like crossover, right? On listening to learn. And it's about that time, y'all, for our wisdom in action. And Shannon, I know you normally go first, but I'm jumping in because mine is going to be hashtag listen to learn.
I like that.
I am totally doing that one for this week.
Okay, Kate, what's yours? What's your wisdom in action?
So I am actually sort of thinking and trying to figure out what to do with a talk I went to yesterday. The Rabbi, Danya Ruttenberg, just published a book on repentance and repair, which sets out for like one of the classic Jewish philosophers' approach to making amends and repairing damage. And one of the things that I quite frequently do is take religious wisdom and translate it into secular language. And so figuring out what to do with Rabbi Ruttenberg's wisdom is where I'm at right now.
So would you call that hashtag figure it out, or hashtag break it down, or
hashtag, I mean, it's hashtag secularize.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. A lot of what I do is bringing religious wisdom into the secular world.
I think it's important. Things are relevant, they're relevant. Okay, so listen to learn. I like it. Secularize. I love getting the message out to people. Mine, I wrote it down earlier. Let me see. Something that Kate inspired. Oh, hashtag You ready for this, Christine?
I'm ready.
Hashtag collaborative accomplishment. Excuse me, collective accomplishment, because this time next
Mhm.
week will be published. Yes, our first compilation book.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I love it. I have
Mm,
so enjoyed this conversation, Kate. Thank you.
mm,
I feel like we could just talk for a couple more hours, but we
Yeah.
have to wrap. And
Mhm.
3 2-year-olds are going to be 2 3-year-olds. I flipped it. Whew, y'all, it's been a week. Are going to be coming through that door in about 5 minutes. So we definitely
Mhm.
have to bring a close to this awesome
yeah.
conversation. But I am so grateful for your work in the world and who you are and your commitment to culture change, your
Mm,
Yes.
commitment to making the world a better place. Thank
Mhm.
you.
mm,
Absolutely. And thank you too for I feel like I've always been that type of person too. The people on the outside, and how can we include you too, include you in the journey of life and help you get what you're looking for yourself. I love that.
Hmm.
mm,
Mm.
mm.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you so much for the invitation to come and participate in this. I love talking to you and also spreading some of these ideas further to the people
Right.
who are listening.
And we're going
Yes.
to have it in the show notes. But if folks want to reach out to you, how do they find you? What's the best and easiest way?
The easiest way to reach out to me is to find me on LinkedIn is the social media that I use most, or to email me at kate@katearms.com.
All right. That's awesome. We'll put that in our show notes for our listeners. So thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to chatting with you more. We're so grateful to be connected. Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Such a good
Psychological safety.
conversation,
You know how I feel
right?
about it. Yes, it is so important.
Woo! Good
Mhm.
stuff. Good
Yes.
stuff. Good stuff. Well, my friend, we are literally almost out of time, but I know there's
Yes.
a few important things that we need to tell folks about, including if you haven't already, check out our new website at
Yes.
womenconnectedinwisdom.com. It is a way to find out about the book that is coming out in a week. The link is not up there yet, but it will be on Tuesday when it is available. And also, you can find out about our upcoming Women Connected in Wisdom conference that is at the end of October, and sign up for your free ticket. Is there
Yes.
anything else we need to tell them about?
You told them about the website. You told them about the book launch, the free ticket. I mean, we talk about a lot, so you do have the free option for the conference. You also have the VIP option. You're going to get a goodie bag with some products from our speakers and our authors, and be able to get the replays. Sometimes you want to go
Great.
back through stuff. We were talking about watching episode 1. We have 85 episodes. It's going to be 4 days packed of information. We're intentional about not giving you too much, but if you want the replays, that's an option as well.
And I think, this is just coming up top of mind. So tell me
Yeah.
no. But
Okay.
I think we're not
Mhm.
just going to send out replays. I think we're going to send out transcripts with it too. So if somebody wants
Mm.
to read it, because I know like
I
I'm
think
a
it's
reader.
important. Yeah.
So I could listen, I could watch, or I could just read it and glean out. Because y'all, the people we have speaking at the end of October have some serious wisdom to share with you. And we are
Yeah.
grateful.
Absolutely.
Well, my friend, I am so glad to have this conversation with you
Me
today
too.
and grateful for just being able to do this on the road and the
Yes.
completion of episode 85.
Yes, and the book. I mean, I'm including everything because next week we're celebrating. The energy is going to be completely
Right?
different. So,
Right? Off the
whew,
charts.
yes, shout out to the intellectual wellness. And thank you guys for being here. We will see you guys live at 5 next week, Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.